Okay. Thank you, Dove, for the setup. Page 608, Parshas Tazria.
Yes.
And
That's Yossi's Tazria Metzora, it's Yossi's
Bar Mitzvah Parsha. Okay.
Did you say
608. And you could spread the word that that all of these are up on YouTube, all of these shiurim. So if you search Beth Jacob Irvine on YouTube, you'll get all of these classes and also the lunch and learn. So it hasn't gone viral. It hasn't quite gone viral yet, but there are people who told me that they've come across it and they're enjoying it. Good. So
it's still not the same as sitting in the class.
Okay. That's why I encourage people to come. Actually, in the email that's
you too could be on YouTube.
Yeah, an email that I sent out, right? So it said, search YouTube, in order to watch at your convenience. But if you prefer live, so I said, come to this morning, last night, this morning, tonight. We have a class also on continuing. It's the third of the 4-part series about understanding the Friday night davening better. And tonight is the third part, which is on the Amidah, the Shemona Esrei, and that's at Jeff and Ilana Sampson tonight, 8:45.
Why is it at home? It's so much nicer.
At home, it's nicer. Yeah. So we do a little bit of all. Whatever we try to keep it a good smorgasbord, so everyone can find what they find appetizing. Okay, Parshat Tazria is going to be dealing with a couple of very interesting, strange laws that we need to understand and try to fully appreciate. So let us begin with Tazria, okay? And we're going to start off with something that is often misunderstood, so let's try to get a better understanding of it. Welcome back, Hazel. Why don't you lead off for us, please, in the Hebrew?
V'yidaber Hashem el Moshe la'omer, daber el b'nei Yisrael, lemur isha ki tazria v'yalda zachar v'tam'a shivat yamim kimei nidat dota tishma.
Okay, and one more pasuk. Uvayom hashmini.
Hashmini yimu besar arlato.
Beautiful. Yosef, take for us that first few. Hashem
spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, saying, when a woman conceives and gives birth to a male, she shall be contaminated for a 7-day period, as during the days of her separation and infirmity shall she be contaminated. On the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised.
Take a few more.
For 33 days she shall remain in blood of purity. She may not touch anything sacred, and she may not enter the sanctuary until the completion of her days of purity. If she gives birth to a female, she shall be contaminated for 2 weeks, as during her separation, and for 66 days she shall remain in blood of purity."
Beautiful. So first of all, this term contaminated is not a term that I would have chosen to use. I lean more towards ritual impurity as opposed to contamination. Right? We hear contamination. We think of the hazmat suits going on, and
I was not real comfortable with infirmity either. What is the Hebrew?
Tamea,
Which is contamination?
which is impurity, ritual impurity.
Contamination is more of a zihum, no?
Yeah.
You're in trouble if you have a twin boy and girl.
Well, so let's understand this,
That
right?
was me.
Okay, so I'd like to touch upon this whole idea of tumah, right? Right. When a woman conceives and gives birth to a male, right? So our first thought is, oh, beautiful, wonderful. This is such a heightened spiritual period. I mean, when you're actually involved in the birth of a child, it is so miraculous.
Oh, yeah.
It is, second to walking a child down the aisle to the chuppah.
Yes.
It is just this otherworldly experience. It is miraculous. You are really going beyond your physical self and entering this whole other world. And we're talking about tumah, right? Even if so let's not use a term as they use here in the English, contaminated. Okay? So let's just say ritual impurity. But even so, now there's this ritual impurity. Are you kidding? This is the heightened point of spirituality. What in the world does heightened spirituality, this touching godliness, what in the world does it have to do? What is its connection to tumah, to spiritual impurity? And the answer is everything. It has everything to do with it. But let's understand and hopefully appreciate why it is. Let's go a little bit further first. Okay, so Yosef, so we read. She gives birth to a male. She's contaminated for a 7-day period. Okay? She gives birth to a female in Pasuk A in verse 5. What happens?
2 weeks.
Right? For 2 weeks. Double. Right? So, as much tumah, impurity, as there is when a boy is born, here we go. Right? When a girl is born, there's going to be double the dose.
This is the future.
Okay? Okay. So, how do we wrap our heads around this? Now, this is not contamination. This is talking about a ritual, spiritual state.
Is it because the female's going to menstruate as well? And have
Okay, so let's deal with that also. Menstruation also brings about this tum'ah, this ritual impurity. What else brings about ritual impurity? Or what is what's called the avi avot hatumah, the grandfather, the source, the very essence of tumah is death. Is death. A dead body imparts a tremendous amount of tumah. It's called, technically speaking, avi avot hatumah. There's an av hatumah, which is like the father, the source of tumah, which can then create a primary, which will then create a secondary, and death is avi avot hatumah. That's the father of the father, because that which comes in contact with a mate will itself become an av. Right? Not a primary or secondary, but it becomes actually the av, almost like the source. What is that? And to complicate things further, there is a certain degree, there are different levels of this tum'ah and the way that this is imparted. Most basically, if one comes in direct contact, that will impart this tumah. Additionally, if one is not in direct contact, but one is carrying, and thereby bearing the weight of the tumah, even though I'm not directly touching the tumah, but I am carrying masa, I am carrying the tumah. Now, contact, either through maga, direct contact, or masa, carrying, with any mate, with any dead body will impart that tumah. However, there is a third aspect, which is tumat ohel, which is being under the same roof, the same covering as a mate. And ohel literally means a tent. And there, just being under the same covering would also impart tumah.
So if you go to a funeral, for example.
Okay, that is why, for example, excellent examples too. I just saw now an announcement for a funeral, and it said clearly that the person, the nifta, the person who passed away, will be in that room. Kohanim need to know to stay outside, right? It's only Kohanim who have this prohibition to not come in contact with a mate, right? Funerals are an issue. Hospitals in Israel are an issue. Okay, well, the reason is that whereas any mate will have tumah by either maga or masa, but being under the ohel, that's only if it's a Jewish person. Only then will impurity be imparted by being under the same roof. But not under the same roof, but under the same roof with a non-Jew who passed away, then there will not be tumah that is imparted in such a way.
But you said only Kohanim,
Yes.
not regular
Yes.
Jews.
Right. A regular Jew will also become tameh. I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. Anyone will become tameh from any type of those contacts. It's only a Kohen who is warned, who is commanded, don't become
And
tameh.
if a Kohen is a doctor, they shouldn't be doctors.
Well, there are those that say that will discourage a Kohen from becoming a doctor for that reason, right? For having to work with
it looks like birth and death are so interrelated.
Okay, good.
So
Birth and death are very related.
That's what I wanted to say. When the baby girl is born, she has all her eggs to give life, and yet each egg goes through a death period.
Okay.
So that's an integration of life
Yeah.
and death.
Okay. Integration of life and death, and certainly menstruation is
Yeah.
also
That's what it
okay.
is.
what about those people that's their job to prepare the body for burial?
Coroners.
Yes.
They do it every day, the whole day.
Yes.
What's happening to them?
Nothing. We at this
Some of them
point.
probably religious people.
Yes, 100%. Look, the Chevra Kadisha.
And it says that it's a mitzvah.
The Chevra Kadisha certainly dealing respectfully with a mate. That is what we call Chesed Shel Emet. That is the kindness of the true kindness, because there's no compensation. So a person must deal with a mate, right? Even if a person is a Kohen, even if he's a Kohen Gadol, even if he's a Kohen Gadol who is a Nazir, a Nazirite is another person who willingly took on that status of being a Nazir and also cannot come in contact with a mate. If a person who's a Kohen Gadol and a Nazirite who encounters a body called a mate mitzvah, a body that needs someone to tend to it, there's no one tending to it, then he must tend to it, even though he become defiled. So there's nothing wrong in being a mate mitzvah. Now we can't go through the process of purification because we don't have all the necessary things, which is the para aduma, the red heifer, right? And whenever in Israel, whenever a red heifer is born into one of the flocks there, it always makes the big news. It means, Mashiach is coming, and therefore we'll be able to reinstate all these different processes. And now another case where it comes up, right, is while visiting a cemetery, right, and going under a tree there. Because even though you're not coming in direct contact, but you don't want to be under the tree, because that will serve as an ohel. There are many Kohanim who don't like to fly El Al to Israel, because El Al often transports bodies to Israel for burial. And that is why in El they have a special compartment where, of course, the bodies are kept, but it's made in such a way that there's enough space between the coffin and the ceiling that that ceiling down there in that compartment is considered the ohel. So whatever is within that compartment will have that tumah, that ritual impurity. Because if there is no space, then the tumah goes up to the next available ohel covering, which would be where the passengers are sitting. In which case everyone will be tameh there. Right? So it is constructed in such a way, but people, Kohanim, don't want to take a chance or whatever. So there are many, many ramifications of this.
What happens?
But what is it? What is it? Why is there this impurity? Now, if it's contamination, which again a term that was used here that I'm not happy with, right? So you would imagine that, well, it would be hard to understand why is there a greater degree of tumah, of impurity, by a Jew than by a non-Jew. So the places where we have this is by birth, we have it by death, we have it by menstruation, we have it, well, we'll come to the main topic of Tazria Mitzora, which is, I don't want to call it leprosy, because it's not leprosy, but it was this physical manifestation of a spiritual decay, right, which came out in lesions on the skin and on the hair that is called sorat. So, and we'll come to that soon.
Psoriasis comes from the word.
I'm sorry?
Psoriasis comes from
Psoriasis. That's interesting.
Exactly what came to my mind.
Interesting. I never heard it before like that, but that's probably
I never heard that
Yeah.
before. Wow.
From what word?
Yeah,
Sarat in
yeah.
Hebrew is the skin lesions, and psoriasis, PSO. Yeah, interesting.
Well, they were the early doctors.
Huh?
The doctors.
Yeah.
Like,
So in understanding in this tumah, so we see clearly that we're not talking about this. Well, we're not talking about a contamination, because this, death is, why is it contamination? And certainly after giving birth, why is there contamination? This idea, this understanding of tumah, is explained in the following way. We are tasked. We are sent here to this earth for a limited period of time. Exactly how long? We only know that when we can no longer know it. Right. We only know that at that point.
Late.
Right? When we've already made the transition from this world that we were sent, tasked with, and we returned back home. We returned back to base, so to speak. What is our mission here? Our mission here is to become as uplifted, as godly as possible. How do we do that? How are we meant to do that? How do we define that? The way we define that is with our Torah, with our instruction guide from God, with our manual. This is the pathway. This is the way to do it. These are the positive actions which bring us close to God. We call those mitzvot. These are the negative actions which distance us from God. We call those the lavs, the don'ts, the prohibitions. This is the pathway that is given to us. And whenever we make whenever we do a mitzvah, the words that we say, the bracha we make beforehand is Baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav, that you have sanctified us. Now, not in all mitzvot do we make this bracha. Invariably, we make this bracha when there is an action, because an action is what is mekadesh kedushat haguf, that is which sanctifies and brings holiness to the body. By doing a mitzvah, that is what infuses this body with spirituality. But the idea is to make ourselves as godly as possible. Tumah, impurity, comes about when there is an absence, a vacuum that is created by that kedusha no longer being there. That is why death is called Avi Avot Hatumah. It's the father, the source, the father of all tumah, because that is the epitome of the absence, of the abscess, of the vacuum that is created when there was tremendous kedusha, there was tremendous holiness, purity, potential. There was this part of God, this chelek elokam imal, this spark of godliness, this neshama that was in us, that brought us to life. And then that neshama is gone, was taken away. And at that point, we're left with a cloak. We're left with a garment that is bereft of its essence, of what it was. That has left. There is now this abscess. What fills that? Now there is tumah. There is impurity, because that potential, that which was there, that possibility for absolute holiness is no longer there.
Okay, but we're talking about birth and life.
Oh.
The complete opposite.
Okay. Now,
You're
that is why. That is why.
Sorry.
That is why death is the avi avot hatumah. Death is the epitome of tumah, of impurity. And whereas we say that every single human being was created b'tselem Elokim, in the image of God, and therefore there is impurity with the death, with the body of every single human being. But every human being has 7 mitzvot, 7 commandments as ways of connecting to God. A Jew is given 613 connections, 613 pathways. And therefore, the potential for connection is that much greater and that much deeper. And therefore, once that neshama leaves, there is a greater degree of tumah. Not just contact, not just masa carrying, but even being under the same enclosure. Right? And just to frustrate Ali a little bit further, before we get to the birth, right? And that is why when we wake up in the morning, there is the moda'ani, the thanks, shechazarta bi nishmati, that you've returned the neshama, and therefore we also have this ritual washing of our hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And why are we washing our hands in the morning? So there are different reasons that are given. One reason is because we're like a new creation, so we're consecrating this new creation. Another reason that's given is that the Kohen, the priests, when they would go into the temple to perform the avodah, what would they do? They would need to wash kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. They would wash their hands. So too, when we are born, when we wake up in the morning, When we wake up in the morning, so what happens? Right? We are now entering our temple. What is the temple? The temple is the place where they would perform their avoda. What is our temple? Our temple is our body. Our temple is our world. Our temple is our day, our relationship with our spouses, with our friends, with the community. We are preparing ourselves to enter our temple today. This is our temple. This is where we are performing our avoda.
So we vacate the temple when we die, and now the temple is ritually impure. It's contaminated.
Well, let's wait. Let's wait. Okay. So when we wake up in the morning, what happened? We're thanking God for bringing back our neshama, which meant our neshama left us at night. To a certain degree, our neshama, certain parts of the neshama leave at night. And that results in tumah. There's a lack of ability. There's a lack of ability to serve Hashem when we are asleep.
Okay.
That is why ritually, right, exactly why like that, I don't know, those who understand all of this said that's the way to wash your hands in the morning. And I, not being an expert when it comes to these spirits and these ruachs, etc., I say, yes, sir. And that's why I wash in that way. Yes, Doug.
Doesn't the other side have some alms trying to get in?
All right, perhaps. Janet?
So when those parts, that little, what is it, like 1/64th of whatever your neshama is, goes at night, isn't it doing even more spiritual things? So that
It might be.
When you immediately...
It might be, but the body
Right, but when you
had that abscess.
wake up and it has returned, now aren't you even more...
You might be more energized to do more things,
and having more potential?
but you might be more energized to do more things, but there was that absence that needs to be dealt with.
Energized in the morning.
I'm sorry?
Did you mean energized in the morning?
What?
Energized
Yeah.
in the morning.
Yeah. Physically and spiritually.
What about those who aren't?
We all are. That's why we slept. Okay.
Back to the birth.
Okay. So now the moment that Allie's been waiting for.
Yeah, I feel
Okay. Okay. So we understand that it's not contamination. There is spirituality that has left. There's an abscess, and it's very interesting, right? Physically, when there's an abscess, what happens?
Abscess?
An abscess in the body usually gets filled with an infection. Is that correct?
Oh, I guess you were saying absent.
Well, they're both, right? But it's interesting to note that an abscess in the body physically gets filled usually with infection, right? And to a degree, that would be a physical manifestation of the spiritual concept that we're discussing here, that when there is this spiritual abscess, so then what fills it is tumah, is impurity. What in the world does this have to do with birth? Birth is holiness. Birth is godliness. Birth is creation. Exactly. That's what it has to do with it. Meaning, if we are saying that the purpose of a human being, the task that we are all tasked with, is to become godly. If we were to describe God in one word, what is unique about God? So we could say omniscient,
Creator.
would certainly be on our list. Creator is on our list. Why is it that birth touches us so deeply? Now, Natalie said, when she was in the hospital with one of the kids, right, and in the next room, right, was this Arab woman, right, giving birth, right, and this was during the intifadas, when things were not going, a little tense, you know. But nevertheless, she said she couldn't help but starting to cry, Of course, you're always emotional at that point, anyhow. But she heard about when she heard the baby being born, you couldn't help but starting to cry. There's an emotion that touches us so deeply at the time of a birth.
Absolutely.
Right? Why is that? What is that? This human being, this full human being has emerged. It is miraculous. It is as close as a human being can come to being a creator. That's as close as we ever come. It's interesting to note that a man, after engaging in marital intimacy, again, right? But there is also ritual impurity then. Why? I mean, marital intimacy, that's considered holiness. That is kedusha. That's holiness. That's not something that we look at and we allow it because of the weakness of man. No, that is a mitzvah. That is considered an essential component of the marriage. That is a mitzvah of the marriage. An absolute mitzvah. That is considered kedusha. That is holiness. That is purity.
Kedusha,
What?
It's interrelated. So that now the child has been conceived, assuming, and therefore whatever follows is not another child.
Okay, so let's understand. So the man at the time of marital intimacy, that is his giving birth.
Right.
From that point on,
He's useless.
Useless. Irrelevant. Right? Useless. A nuisance at best. Right? Okay.
Absolutely.
Right?
Especially when
At
you're
that point,
retired.
he has completed his partner of creation. A woman goes through these 9 months of this miracle that is developing inside of her, and then is the point of creation. What is the woman's point of creation? Birth. What results after that? This woman has gone from being a creator to being a mere mortal woman. So now there is this abscess, this precipitous drop in her being a creator. God's a creator and she was a creator. And now God's a creator and she's in a lot of pain. Right? And she has just given birth.
She has to.
Right? Right? That is the precipitous drop that has taken place.
Did you say drop?
Drop.
Drop in status.
In
I was
status.
created now.
That's not so.
She is still in seventh heaven.
Forever.
But she is no longer she is no longer, let's put it like this, Hazel. She is no longer actively engaged in creating. She has created.
Once you've given birth, that act is over. You're still mom forever.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's
the act
also
of creation.
all
Sometimes
wrapped up in the
unfortunate.
same sort of
Absolutely.
dimension.
Absolutely. But the actual act of creating
And being close to Hashem.
and being so godlike, I don't say close to Hashem, being godlike in that respect is no longer. And therefore, what results? What results is tumah. Let's come to menstruation for a moment. Right? Why is it that there is tumah, this ritual impurity, when a woman has her period? It's, to a certain degree, it's a death. And it is the death of the potential for life.
That's what it's, the potential we're talking about.
That was not actualized. The body had prepared the uterus for conception and to sustain that conception, to sustain life. And once that was unrealized, so now the body rids itself of that. So the ridding itself of that is that potential that has gone. And therefore, there is that tumah afterwards. That ritual impurity, because of that height that was there, that is no longer there.
What is the ritual after the birth? Well, I mean, in theory, but is it physical? Do we see, what the stuff, the extra stuff that comes out, or?
Even in a case where there would not be bleeding, let's say it would be a C-section.
You bleed.
Sorry?
Yeah,
You bleed.
Yep.
Okay, but it's the birth.
Okay.
It's not all that which comes out. We're talking about a ritual impurity.
No, just because my 3 sons were born vernix-free, and the doctor told me that they were born washed. They still washed them, but there was no blood, there was no gook on them or anything. They came out shining nice. And really, really nice. Vernix-free it's called.
It's a human coral.
Vernix-free. And I
Vernix-free.
Vernix-free, that's what the doctor told me. It's a state, and I was just wondering what you're telling me this. I thought maybe the tumah is, all the kids get washed and they're all fine. I'm not saying that they're more special, but it was like they
We're
were
talking about a status change.
It's not physical.
We're talking about a status
Spiritual
change. A status change from being an active creator to one who now will, for life, tend to and mother and love this creation, but from an active creator to a post-active creator. And a girl has tumah. The mother is impure for 2 weeks instead of 1.
Because she created another woman.
She created a creator. She created, Chedush
It's
Yarim
double-
says,
it's
she
double
created
indemnity, right?
a creator. So not only was she godly in this respect of creation, she created a being which has that capacity to create.
So look at how
And
beautiful
therefore
this is.
it is a higher, considered a higher level.
And yet we have so much of the secular society that looks at our faith and says that we as women are such a lower class, but when you think about something like
Who says that?
it's so beautiful because
Yeah.
only a woman can be that in that creative place as close to God. A man can never
Right.
achieve that place.
Correct.
I mean, it's so beautiful when you see it that way. We are very empowered as women, is my point.
Two of my pet peeves. Two of my pet peeves. When it comes to saying, that the Torah is sexist against women, right? And therefore there are other denominations of Judaism which have taken steps in order to try to, in their view, remedy this. So, what are steps that were taken? Well, one, Judaism puts the Jewish woman on a pedestal, in that the only one who has who plays any role in granting this child a Jewish neshama is the Jewish mother. The father is irrelevant, useless, a nuisance. What do we say? I think right?
A pain
He's
in
the
the...
tribe, though. He's
Okay.
something.
Once he's Jewish, then the father will determine which tribe, Kohen, Levi, Yisroel, which tribe. Yes. But the only one that can actually make this child Jewish is the mother. The greatest tzaddik in the world, Moshe Rabbeinu, and a non-Jewish woman, the child is non-Jewish. A Jewish woman, regardless of who the husband is, Jewish or non-Jewish, the child is Jewish. That's a pedestal that the woman is on. And other denominations, in trying to give the woman her strength, they conjured patrilineal descent. And they say either the father or the mother is Jewish, the child is Jewish. Reform, I believe, has accepted patrilineal descent. Yes. Either parent is Jewish, the child is Jewish. So that is taking the woman off of her pedestal. Let's take another example. Bar mitzvah. Bat mitzvah. When a boy reaches the age of 13 and a girl reaches the age of 12, they now become b'nei mitzvah. They're fully obligated in mitzvot as an adult. Now, girls physically develop, reach puberty, normally earlier than boys do. Our understanding is that that physical change that the child undergoes is representative of an emotional, psychological, spiritual maturation that the child is going through. And at that point, that is when they are b'nei mitzvah, when they are eligible, when they are responsible as adults. A boy, it's at age 13. A girl, it's at age 12, because a boy matures physically and emotionally later than a girl does. A boy is retarded, which just means slowed, in his development as compared to a girl. So that is why a girl, it is a nod to the maturity of a young lady that she has her bat mitzvah at age 12 instead of at age 13. But those who want to remedy, they say, well, why should the boy be at 13 and the girl at 12? So let's treat our mature young ladies in the same way that we treat our immature young men, and they should celebrate their bat mitzvah at what age?
13.
At age 13.
With the yarmulke.
Well, whatever the case is. But the idea is that there's an understanding that a woman, a young girl, is ready at an earlier state. Is not going to be delayed. There's not this arrested development that takes place with a girl as it does with a boy, but they're running against themselves.
Can I go back?
Ali and then Yafi,
I
yes.
just want to go back to this, that, so, because with the ritual impurity, there's different things you need to do to purify yourself.
Correct.
Ali,
So-
thank you. That was my next question.
Right, so after birth, it's different than after going to a cemetery. And then for a Kohen, that's a whole nother story. But
Correct.
so when they're saying 2 weeks, so I mean it basically puts you in a place of like nidah, correct? And then at some point you go to the mikveh.
Correct.
So there's, I mean, and so there's different. There's washing after a funeral. So there's different
Correct.
forms.
Okay, so for all tumot, for all these ritual impurities, except for one, the way to go about through purification is through a mikveh. Right? The mikveh is natural water that has pooled, that has collected. Our mikveh, it was from the rainwater that fell and pooled there, and now, of course, we keep maintaining that water, right? And
God bless you.
la briut, right? So, for almost all tumas, with the exception of one, it is through immersion in a mikveh at the proper time. Okay? The exception is tumat met, right? Which is coming in contact with a dead body. And there, the purification process involves a whole process with the red heifer, the para aduma, which we don't have nowadays. That is why nowadays everyone is in this state of tumat met, which is why the Rabbanut has signs by the kotel not to go up that ramp to go into the court, the temple courtyard area. There are many Rabbanim who do go up there because they say that they're clear and they know exactly which is the part of the courtyard, right? Which was the area of the courtyard and which is not part of the temple courtyard. The Rabbanut, the Jerusalem Rabbinate in general tells people not to go up there, right? Because being that we are tamei mate, because we have come in contact with dead, and there's no way to reconcile that, to remedy that, to remove that. Therefore, one of the laws of Tumah is that one does not enter into the mikdash, into the area of the temple. Okay? Now, practically speaking, after giving birth nowadays, so we spoke about 7 days and 33 days of Demei Tahara, of pure bleeding, and then going to the mikveh, and that's after a boy, and 14 and 66 after a girl. That's all in regards to Tumah and Tahara, right, in terms of entering a mikdash or eating hekdesh, which we don't have nowadays. Practically speaking, nowadays, if a woman gives birth, when a woman gives birth, then once the bleeding has stopped, then she needs to wait 7 clean days, which is the classic, and then she would go to the mikveh. Now, it's very rare for a woman, right? So the only time it would come up is after having given birth to a girl, if she'd stop bleeding after 5 days. So could feasibly go to the mikveh on day 12, she would need to wait to day 14. But it's very rare for a woman after birth, right? There's bleeding, there's some bleeding that goes on for a while. So it doesn't really play into the halacha lamasa over here.
Rabbi, why can the husband not put his arm around or touch his wife once she's had the baby?
Okay.
Isn't that a time where a woman needs to have affection or bonding?
So Hazel, let me share with you that when I was in yeshiva post-high school and I was really being introduced to all of these laws, and right, that is one of them that really bothered me. That after my wife gives birth, right, I will not be able to give her a hug, right, and just put my arm around her and just bask in the glow of this beautiful little child that we've brought into this world together, and we're tasked now with doing our best to raise this child to be a wonderful Jew and human being. That is one of the things that bothered me. That really scared me. It really bothered me. And I'll just say that, and I'll come back to the ideas behind it. I'll just say that after each of the children were born, the connection and the shared mission and the love that Natalie and I felt, we didn't need the arm. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been nice, but we didn't need that hug. We didn't need the arm. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been nice to hold hands, but it didn't take away from our joy and our bonding and our togetherness and our.
Can you not touch
and the reason being?
Okay. So the reason being, this is something called the harchakot. Okay, and in addition to a husband and wife being separated during her menstrual period and for the 7 clean days afterwards until she goes to the mikveh, so in addition to the Torah prohibition of intimacy, in order to safeguard that, so the rabbis instituted the harchakot, which is a safeguard.
Okay.
Not even serving food or
right? Not to do the things which often lead
the same principle.
Yeah, which lead to the intimacy.
Kind of analog to Maris Ayin.
Not really Maris Ayin.
I say the analog to it, analogous to it.
Okay.
What is Maris Ayin?
The Maris Ayin actually is a little bit different. Yeah, it's a safeguard. It's a safeguard around. The example that I always give, if California Edison would come to do some work, on the power lines and they open up the street, then, and they do their work, if they would not put caution tape around the area and guards around the area, right, it would be criminal. Because we understand that you fall in there, right, that can be very dangerous. So the sage's view of a prohibition is that is radioactive, that is very dangerous, and therefore they would put up a fence around it. Yes, then.
Thank you. Very nicely
I'm going to say something a little strange, but it also is a form of protection for the woman, because at this point she is not ready and she cannot, and not every husband.
So after a birth.
Yeah.
After a birth.
So that there are a couple of weeks where it's just not possible, and in that sense it gives her a chance to recover, gives her the chance not to be pressured. Now one assumes that every husband is considerate, but one can also know that's not always the case. And under those circumstances, the kind of pressure that a person might be placed under. So this is a form of consideration for the wife's welfare too.
Yeah, makes sense.
Beautiful.
Rabbi,
Beautiful.
the Judaism put women on a pedestal, like you said, but then women cannot read from the Torah, and women cannot be witnesses. So
Witnesses
Okay.
of what?
There we go.
they cannot be witnesses.
Okay.
They cannot.
So, in terms of being witnesses, so there are different approaches that are given why women are not called for witnesses. One approach is a king also cannot be called as a witness.
A what?
A king. David Melech Yisroel, pasul le'edut.
I'm sorry.
David, the king of Israel,
Yes.
is disqualified to serve as a witness. A king of Israel cannot serve as a witness. Why is that? Because it's degrading. Right? You're getting called as a witness, you're getting cross-examined, you're getting put through the grinder. Right? And a king is a person who we a king needs to be on a pedestal. He cannot be put through the ringer in a court setting. So there are those that explain that a woman also, in that respect, that she cannot, right? Because we don't want to put her through that degrading experience of being challenged, of being considered a liar, of being to go through the ringer. Others explain it a little bit differently. Very interesting. A relative, a karov, a relative cannot serve as a witness. Why not?
They're biased.
Biased, right? There is an emotional connection that that person has with whoever they're testifying about, and therefore, even if they want to be honest and just speak the facts, but they see it through a very, very biased manner. A man, in general, because halachas need to be institutionalized in a general fashion, a man is straightforward, calculating. A woman gets emotionally involved. That is a blessing, but that is the nature. And therefore, for that cold impartiality that is required for testimony, that is something that a woman is exempted from. Because there's a different way of viewing the world. When we lived in Israel, so we had a couch overlooking this big window behind the couch, overlooking, there was a road down below and mountains behind there. Right? 5 little boys, 5 little Ciners, as they were young, would stand on that couch looking out the window, and we hear them say, truck, car. And then when we had the 6th little Ciner, the first female, our little Miriam, she's on the couch there, and she says something which blew Natalie away. She looks out the very same window. Tree. Bird. They see a different world.
Yeah, absolutely.
They see a different world. They see things in a different way. So those are two reasons that are given why women are exempt from testimony.
What about reading from the Torah?
Reading from the Torah is a very, very technical issue. Okay? It's a very technical issue. Reading from the Torah or leading services, being a chazan. Very, very technical issue. When the person reads from the Torah, who's supposed to be reading from the Torah? Not the Baal Koreh, the person getting the Aliyah. Right? That's what he's supposed to be doing it. Because we're not proficient in it, so we have a Baal Koreh that does it. Whenever a person is serving in a tzibur, in a communal role, what that person is doing is helping me fulfill my obligation. I have an obligation, and it's being fulfilled through the role that person is playing. Now, let me diverge for a moment. Let's say my son would come from Israel. Right? He's coming from Israel. He'll be here for Pesach. Okay? For the first days of Pesach. Now, we here in America, we hold 2 days of Pesach. He's an Israeli living in Israel, just visiting here. He holds 1 day of Pesach. Can he make Kiddush for us on the second day of Yom Tov?
No.
He cannot. Why can't he make Kiddush?
Because he's not obligated.
Because he's not obligated. He has no mitzvah to make Kiddush, because for him, it's not Yom Tov. Yesterday was Yom Tov. The second day is not Yom Tov. If he's not obligated, then I can't fulfill my obligation through him because he's not obligated. If he's obligated, then I can fulfill my obligation through him. If he's not obligated, I cannot fulfill my obligation through him. Davening with a tzibur, davening with a minyan, and all that entails with having a shliach tzibur, having a leader, is an obligation that's on men and that is not on women.
Because of time.
I'm sorry?
Because of the time.
Because of the time, right? In other words, right, we can come to that maybe this week, maybe another week. There are certain mitzvot that are time-based mitzvot, time-based positive mitzvot that women, we learn from the Torah, are exempted from. Meaning that's not a pathway, that's not something that they need in order to reach their full spirituality to connect with Hashem. There are those that say that they themselves are a time mitzvah. It's interesting. The only mitzvah that we have that is, right, that the body is time-based is family purity.
Is what?
Family purity. A woman goes through a monthly cycle. Man has no cycle that he goes through. A woman goes through. A woman is this chefza, is this essence of time. So men have these time mitzvahs that need to be imposed upon us. A woman inherently has. But without going into that, a woman is not obligated in the davening, in the tefillah b'tzibur, in the communal davenings that include the Baruch Hu, the Kaddish, the Kedusha, Torah reading. So therefore, a woman, when it comes to those leading roles, would be like my son from Israel making Kiddush for me on the second day of Yom Tov. If he is not obligated, then I cannot fulfill my obligation. My obligation cannot be fulfilled through him. Similarly, a woman reading the Torah or leading the services, since they are not fully obligated in the mitzvah to daven, but not this tzibur, not this time-based communal davening, therefore they cannot be the ones through whom those who are obligated fulfill their mitzvah.
But if the community was all women and there were 10 women, a woman could read, right?
Who said that? She can do whatever she
Not
wants,
necessarily.
but it's not going to fulfill any
it's not
mitzvah.
Not necessarily. It's not her
10
mitzvah.
women is not a minyan. It's only 10 men.
In this,
Because women in general
Here,
Are not obligated in those mitzvot.
But
So if
would
you're not-
it actually be prohibited, like if they wanted to?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. There's clearly no obligation.
Exactly.
Right.
Going to
There's
shul.
clearly no obligation.
Right.
But there is a benefit for women to come to the shul.
It's definitely a benefit. Definitely a benefit to come to shul, and if that is inspiring, if that gives them the sense of community, then certainly. But if they are home with their children, then they are not lacking in any fulfillment of an obligation.
So that's
Rabbi,
why
if a-
women
if
are
a-
not
if-
allowed to say Kaddish.
Well, that's why a woman would not. That's why a woman would not be leading the Kaddish. Certainly to say along the Kaddish is
But
fine.
there are congregations that they don't want women to say the Kaddish. To say the
There are
Kaddish. They
different.
completely
There are different
ignored.
There are different customs. What we do here is I'll make sure that there is at least one man saying the Kaddish along, and then the women say their Kaddish along. But not to be leading it in a solo manner because there is no full obligation. Coming back to the same.
So if a woman dies, she has no sons, her daughter says Kaddish for her.
She has to pay someone to do
Yafi was saying Kaddish the whole year for her mom.
Right.
So she's saying it on our side, and she doesn't seem to be, like in my opinion, have any recognition. Like when the men do, they come forward, you're there, and you give them some kind of comfort.
I think we
and
try.
And then
No, they
The women band together,
actually
No.
and we make sure to say
not
it.
all the time, but sometimes
Oh,
men are coming towards us because we sit here.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
So they're sitting, they're
Yes, I've seen
standing
that.
on
And
the other side.
and we pay close attention to make sure that we're going at a pace that everyone is comfortable with.
So a woman can say Kaddish if she has no brothers for her late parents.
Yeah, but will it be counted as a...
Well, I do have a brother. but he was
That's-
we'll find out later.
They have to ask God.
Ask the big guy.
I mean, it's permitted.
Yes.
So the women are not called upon witnesses.
Correct.
They still
In a
practice-
Jewish in a Beit Din, in a Jewish court.
Okay.
In a Jewish
Does
court.
Israeli practice this law right now?
Yes. There's certain exceptions. There's certain exceptions if in order to prevent an aguna. In other words, aguna is if we don't know if the husband is dead or alive. So then it's a very tragic status for the wife that she cannot remarry because he might be alive. She has, right? So there are certain situations where we will allow a woman or a single witness to testify that I saw the death of that person. There are certain situations, but for the most part, not. Yeah. Yes, Jan, then we'll call it.
Getting back to the original, two parts. So if a woman has a boy and the bleeding continues past 8 days, can she not go to the Brit Milah? And how does that work?
She can't when she's breathing.
This has nothing to do with Brit Milah. There's nothing to do with attending.
She's not supposed to go to or enter areas of holiness. She can't enter the sanctuary.
She
So
can't
by
enter Beit HaMikdash. She can't enter the Beit HaMikdash.
Oh, so she could go to other ceremonies of Kiddush.
Beit HaMikdash, she can't
Okay.
enter. Period.
And then, so if it's past 8 days, she still has to wait till the first clean day and start counting from then?
Practically speaking, after giving birth, a woman will wait until the bleeding stops,
Okay.
count 7 clean days, and then
And
then
I
go
don't
to
know, any
mikveh.
woman who has baby and is ready to go, rush back into anything anyways.
And then,
Yeah.
and then she
Yeah, no,
still
Debbie, that's
counts-
an excellent point that you
She
made.
would still count 33 days before she resumes.
That's in the time of the mikdash. No, nowadays we don't have that
So
because
what
that's
do we do in lieu of those offerings nowadays?
what do we do in lieu of any offerings these days.
Right.
So she would go on the 34th day.
Linda, I was just going to make an announcement about Sunday, next Sunday.
Okay, I have to go. I'm sorry. I need to take somebody to the doctor.
Can I ask
Okay.
a question?
Sorry.
Yeah, just a quick announcement and then.
Sunday is the women's lunch. You know about that, Linda.
Yes.
Okay. There's a lunch. It's Rebbitzins are going to be demonstrating dishes, pre-Pesach dishes, which Nina will then serve, and we'll have a brunch. The cost of the brunch is $18 because there's a lot of money involved. I'm asking, we have telephone callers, and I'd like to speak to the few telephone callers afterwards, but we're also asking those who are not officially telephone callers, if you can call 5 if you have close friends. 5 of your close friends and tell them about it. That would really help us. And so you know the date, it's March 30th, it's from 10:30 to 12:30. It's basically the Rebbitzin. Natalie will probably do more work because of various reasons, but Debbie Schechter is going to do the Bar Torah. We're going to have some wonderful prizes. Has nothing to do with raffles, just prizes. And we've designed a few very interesting things. It should be a lovely, lovely time.
So this Sunday, 10:30 to 12:30.
10:30, 12:30 brunch, and it could end at 1. It could end at 12. We don't know. You know, it's in the tent. In the tent, of course. And so I would like to speak afterwards to Linda. Not Ilana. What do I say?
Ilana's my Hebrew name.
Okay,
Ilana.
I said it right.
Eileen.
Okay, and okay.
And can I add something about that? Also, I think all the women are encouraged to join the Beth Jacob women.
We're going to have a membership, but it's only going to be for half a year because we're in the middle of a year. So the membership drive will be $12.50. Okay, so if anyone has any questions, but I would like to speak to.